What's up, everybody? This is Lauren Delisa Coleman, and we are still inside the AAIFF, the Asian American International Film Festival. And I have a hot filmmaker with me now who's going to be the next subject of our episode here for the Inside series, which, brings you behind the scenes and really into the minds of a lot of today's filmmakers. So let's get to it. I want to welcome Evan Leong, who is the filmmaker behind Snakehead. Evan, thanks so much for taking out the time.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
He's coming to us live and direct from Manhattan Beach, Los Angeles, even though the film is playing in New York and we're just making it all good, happening right now. So Evan, let's kick things off like we always do. Could you give our viewers a brief synopsis of this very cool film?
Sure. So Snakehead is, when I tell people about what Snakehead is, I tell people Scarface. When you think of Scarface, it's Scarface, but instead of a Cuban man, it's a Chinese woman. And instead of smuggling cocaine into the country, she's smuggling people. And, this is a story inspired by true events in the 90s by a woman that was smuggling hundreds of thousands of Fujianese into New York's Chinatown. And, from this idea of immigration, migration, and, people that help this journey, right? People that are the smugglers. In Chinese culture, they're called snakeheads. And, for me, this story is about a Chinese woman coming to America and facing and experiencing the underworld in New York Chinatown in the backdrop of human smuggling.
Yeah, no, it's hot because I love everybody. You guys already know on the series that I love anything dealing gangster, underworld, thriller. Like that's my thing. So when I saw this, I was like, okay, we need to get kind of deeper into this because I don't think we've seen anything quite like this, and certainly not from a young woman's perspective, right? Because when you think like smuggler, you're really not thinking like this almost modelly looking type woman, right?
Right.
So how did you kind of come to, just this whole story, and when did you guys actually shoot this?
Yeah, that's a great question. As a sixth generation Chinese American, right, I've always wanted to see characters like myself on screen, right? And I think that's what we all yearn for as audience members, wherever we are. And we're being portrayed in ways that we haven't seen before, that are heroes and anti-heroes and villains and heroes, right? And I think that's what I wanted to do with this film. And I wanted to go from the perspective of a woman, because I have and admire a lot of strong Asian women in my life. And I felt like every time they're portrayed on screen, it's one way or the other. And I'm like, let's face this stereotype, deconstruct it, and make it our own. And I think that's ultimately why I really want to make this film. When I heard about the story of the true story of Sister Ping in New York Chinatown, I was like, wow, this is, obviously I was drawn to the underworld aspects of it, but I was like, you know what? She carries herself in the matriarchal way. And that was something that I knew existed in my world, in my life. And I wanted to see that on screen. And that's why I wanted to make this movie.
That I think is just so great, because I've been speaking to, of course, a couple of other filmmakers during the festival who too, and it's really interesting, are taking Asian women's kind of stereotypes and totally crashing them and smashing them, and then creating, bringing these new stories to light, new, but not really, you know what I mean? They're already existing, right, but we have not had the chance to see and meet these characters on screen. And if you don't know them and kick it with them in real life, you would just not know that they, exist.
Well, the way this industry works, it's all based on money, right? And if there's no proven model to make money with a story like this, no one's going to take the chance on it. It takes so much resources, so much time, so much effort to make a movie, that to take a chance on something that will just lose money, could potentially lose money, because most movies lose money, it's a hard chance to take. And, I'm in the camp of if no one's going to make it if I don't do it, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not going to happen. And, let me back up to your other earlier question, just like when did I start this, right? This is, I started this over 12 years ago.
Really?
Shot this in 2016. So I feel very blessed to be in this moment, to be able to share this film, right? Timing has a lot to do with it, to get this kind of sort of interest, right? I mean, I may shot this in 2016, the Me Too movement, 2017, all that kind of stuff. I'm like, oh, this movie's relevant in a different way now. And now with the interest in Asian Americans and our sort of struggles here in this country are coming to light, it also fits within the timing, right? Well, this is how another way to further our sort of presence here with the stories. And I'm lucky that, unfortunate that it's like almost a perfect timing.
So, I mean, I totally agree with you on that. And it was great that you could stick it out for, all that time. Tell me a little bit about how you went about that. Like, I mean, in terms of raising the funds, was that part of the kind of time
Sure.
kind of issues, or
Sure.
how
Yeah,
did it
no.
kind of all work together?
Sure. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to raise money for a movie like this, right? I mean, we've had a lot of potential investors and a lot of, failed promises when we were raising money for this film, right? It took a long time to even get that. And at a certain point, I just gave up on all these big investors. Like, I'm going to make this movie myself, my way. So, we crowdfunded, we Kickstarted. We had an amazing turnout for Kickstarter. Got a good sum of money. I think we got 130,000 total from Kickstarter. And, that showed me the community is ready for this, right? And people in my circle, they want to see this. So now the question is like, how do we get beyond our community? How do we get it? It has to be good enough, right? It has to be excellent. And, the process, there's a lot weighing on me, right? I'm lucky that this movie's come to me at this point in my life, because I know whatever happens at this point in my career is pretty much going to dictate the rest of my career. I'm not 22, I'm not 50, it's like this sort of moment where as a filmmaker, you better do something that moves the needle. Otherwise, you're just going to be dead in the water. And, I knew that as a.
Do you feel that though, really, Evan, that at a certain point, like, I mean, like, I don't know, like maybe women think about having children at a certain age and that's it, no point of no return. Do you feel like that?
I think it's hard to walk away from a person.
In terms of age and everything, that there is like a window? Really?
I think as a director, there definitely is, right? I think there's a certain age where directors kind of really boss them, right? And too young is too early, too old is too late. But there's a certain sort of like prime. And it's really about, I think, being a certain age of understanding an experience in life, right? I feel like if I made this when I was 22, I might have gave up a lot earlier, because I'd be like, this is too hard. But at 39, 38, I'm like, this is it. This is your shot. And you mess this up, it's over.
You put like crazy pressure on yourself then to make.
Yeah, I think you have to. And that's what film is, right? You have to go 110%. There's no excuses for like, oh, I could have did this, I couldn't do that. When the movie's over, you don't get to tell every single audience member that. I learned early that like there's no excuses in filmmaking. You make the most excellent product you possibly can, and you go beyond that, because it shows if you go 98%. It shows if you go 99%. And you get rewarded when you go 110. It's so hard. It's super hard, but I don't think if this was easy, I think there'd be a lot more, filmmakers making movies, but it's very difficult. And I think I just have a new respect for the craft by going through this experience.
Interesting. Tell me a little bit about how your background, aside from, of course, valuable just human experience that you brought to the project, but what kind of maybe key points along the way in your career kind of were really pivotal in helping you to I mean, it's got to
start with my parents and the way I was raised, right? My family grew up in San Francisco. I grew up in a very sort of comfortable, secure environment, and I think that allowed me to really explore anything I wanted to, right? And I think that's the sort of privilege you get as an artist a lot of the time. And my mother was really pushed me to go and not push me, but exposed me to a lot of different arts and Asian American art. And
Cool.
I've always was like, oh, that's possible. It's, the quality of talent is, what it is, but there is a possibility to go down this route. Um, and when I got to college, the biggest moment for me was realization, like when I met this other director. He was making his first indie film, and it happened to be Justin Lin, and he was making his first indie film, and I got to see him make this film, go to Sundance, blow up, and now he's directing Fast and Furious, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and for me, that's when I saw him do that. I got exposed on a real level of a primary sort of relationship where he was my mentor, and I got to see like, oh, this is what it takes. This is what you need to strive for, and it is possible. I think without him, there's no way I would even consider this industry, because you don't have a network. This industry is very built based off of networks and fraternal sort of relationships, which is like almost any relation and any industry is, right? But this one especially because it's so small, finding someone as a mentor that is swimming in it gives you hope and gives you inspiration to keep going. This is 2000, right? We're in a very different era now than we were when I started. But so when I started, we were still shooting things on film. Nobody was really doing digital. So there wasn't a lot of opportunity, which I think also at the same time makes filmmaking different now because you can shoot digitally. There's a lot less sort of thought in the process of the craft versus back then. It's like when you shoot this film, you're burning $10 a second, right? $100 a minute, $1,000 a minute, depending on what kind of set you are. So you think of the process and telling stories very differently than we do now. So yeah, I'm getting all over the place here, but some of the pivotal points is definitely Justin, and then having success with my my work, I think ultimately in the end, when I look back at my career, I think of like anything past 2015, it's the fact that I'm still in the game was a success to me because, experience and time is really, it's a hard thing to survive in this industry. Because there's just not, the opportunities are, and may come, may not. And you can't really do much for that to happen.
Interesting. I love how you kind of, sum that up. I think it has a lot of points where like people can pull from that as well for, inspiration and kind of, some tips and stuff. Cause like you said, the game is not easy. But tell me a little bit about how this film came to be in this particular festival.
ACVs is one of the community festivals that I've always been a part of. I think since I started filmmaking, I've been supported by these Asian American community film festivals, from VC to CAM to ACV. Each one of them have always been welcoming to me as a young filmmaker. And in the early 2000s, like to have your film at a film festival, that's basically the highest level you could possibly get. There was no Hulus, there was no streaming. Nobody was even watching documentaries back then. So those were the highest epsilon of sharing your work and broadcasting it. So I was lucky to, early on, they supported me. You supported my early films, supported my things. So I've always had a very close relationship to these festivals, in these community ones, because without them, like you're just, there's no support, and without support, there's no way to continue the craft, right? Because it sucks. It's really hard. It took me 20 years to make a movie, right? And I've been working in this thing this whole time. And so I think, for me, that's, when you're young, you want everything's really fast. And as you get older, you realize, okay, the journey is what was actually the reward. And you can't forget those people that supported you early.
So true. Well, I think the journey and the goal are the reward. I was having this debate the other day, somebody on Instagram who was like, "Oh, people realize once they reach the goal that it was really about the journey." And I said, "Why couldn't it be holistic and be about both?" Like it's killer to have, like, I'm sure, a film right now that you can point to and look at and people admire. And along the way, it was great too. The whole thing is life, I think. And one is not shouldn't supersede like the other, because it's all success is great, and all the lead up to it is
Sure,
great. I don't
sure.
know, I think having lived in Europe for many years, I have a different kind of perspective on things, because their perspective is just like a lot cooler and more laid back, I guess I would say, than us here as capitalists, which is great, but it's about a particular thinking in silos, whereas in Europe and other parts of the world it's more about
No,
just
I
an
completely
organic
agree with that.
approach. And
The
I
whole,
feel that
right?
that's more supportive as a human being, because nothing exists in a silo.
Yeah, yeah, no, I agree with you in terms of the whole idea of the whole ecosystem of it all. Ultimately, though, for me, like if you focus on the goals, right, and if you don't get the goals, like I mean, shoot, I don't think 98% of my things I don't reach the goal in filmmaking, and that, in a sense, that means I'm a complete failure, right? I continue to fail. And so what I've come to the point where I like saying, like, if I died tomorrow, I'll be happy with the work I experienced and all that, because the goals are great. I mean, but that is not guaranteed on any level, right? There's no guarantee that I get in a tip. There's no guarantee that I make a movie and people want to watch it, right? And I think that is what I've come to the point of sort of just this whole sort of career path of, like, I really just I do enjoy working, and I do enjoy that sort of journey to that, because that's really exciting. This, when you place it on the goal, if you never get the goal, then you're not going to be happy. And I don't think that's a great mantra either, because to chase something that you may never, I mean, there's a 0.01% chance that I'm going to make it. I mean, that's just the reality of Hollywood. And if I don't get that goal, if I don't reach that 0.01%, then, it's failure. No, I don't think so, because in the end, I was happy and enjoying this process.
I totally agree with you. I mean, I don't think it's not one or the other. One shouldn't just focus on the goal or just the journey.
Sure.
It's the whole thing, together, I think. But I think we're learning more about how to approach life with each generation, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
I don't think anybody's like made it to a utopia just yet, least of all me.
Sure.
But speaking of things which aren't utopias, tell me what was maybe the most challenging thing about this film, aside from raising the money, which is, typically
Yeah.
until you get, I guess, to the Scorsese level, the challenge, right? But in terms of just like maybe logistics or, casting or whatever, what came up for you that you were like, oh my God, I can't believe this is happening, and had to figure out like maybe something, a way around it or a
I
solution?
mean, this is an indie film, so every frame on that film is
Is a
so hard
challenge.
to make and so hard to execute. Every single scene. I mean, we're at basically every location is free. Every location, all the extras are free. All the people, all the actors are working for like nothing. Every crew member is working for nothing. So every day, you know, we're shooting this in February in New York. So it's also, 20 degrees, snowing. You never know when you're gonna get a snowstorm, right?
Yeah.
And then February, March is when it really hits for us in New York, or when I used to live in New York. And so every day was a challenge. Every day from, how are we gonna get the camera here? How are we gonna set this up here? Where's base camp gonna be? Because it's freezing outside and we have nowhere to go. Did we get the knife? Did we get the money? Did someone get the blood? Did the action guy show up, or he didn't show up because we're not paying him enough to come? There's, how are we going to go? And, I think, I mean, this film is super ambitious. I mean, when you look at it, it's just like, whoa, why did you try to do so many things? And so that means you got to set pieces. That means you have set pieces almost every other day. And I don't know why anyone would try to do that. Only a naive, ignorant filmmaker would try that. And that's what we did. And, the beauty of this is that, when all these people gave so much for so little, everyone's there because they wanted to be. not because the paycheck, not because what's this going to do for me. It's because they believed in the story and the script and me. And so that gives you an energy on set that you feel like you can
Mm,
conquer anything.
that's
Um,
nice. That's nice.
and, you
And when
know,
you look at it, Evan, you wouldn't be like, oh yeah, this was like touch and go every day. It does not look like that at all.
no, every day, every hour is a new challenge, right? Did we get the permit for this? Did we get the permit for that? The police are going to come here. Did we get a ticket for this? I mean, did someone crash the truck? Right? I mean, you're getting PAs to drive trucks around. You know, I mean, we only had one truck, to be perfectly honest, too. So we had a ton of trucks. We had one truck that, you know, and that I drove to set and leave set every day because that was what we needed, you know, because someone needed to do that. Um, you know, I think so. There's not one challenge. It's just every day was a challenge. And,
Mm.
you know, I mean, if you want to break down a scene, I'll tell you every single challenge what that was. But, you know, overall, I mean, how do you get a boat? How do you get a big rig? I mean, I couldn't do this without people, you know, believing in this. My producer, Brian, I could not have done it without him going after and getting all these things for free. Uh, Finagling and negotiating with people to get things. I mean, just getting an interrogation room was like one of the hardest things ever to do. We found a free place to shoot it, but we got to paint the walls. We got to paint the walls. We show up on the day. It's a snowstorm. We show up on the day and it's like, you know, we had to dig snow out of the way to get to the location from the thing. And, you know, you got crew just leaving. They're just done. They're like, I'm not working on this. It's too dangerous, you know? And, you know, I think that's just ultimately what every day is another challenge.
Wow. So it's really just like guerrilla style, like not a joke.
Yeah, I mean,
Really
that's
wanted
the
to get
only
this
way I think
done.
we could have executed what we were trying to do because it was so ambitious. You know, you had to be that light and be that nimble. I'll never do a movie like that again, but, you know, at the same time, I'll never give it up. I mean, what we did on that movie, not a lot of people can do, which is, I think that's where the beauty of this film really shines.
That's just amazing. Um, we were talking a little bit offline about how you just moved to Manhattan Beach from New York. What made you do that? Just to be closer to, the industry, or
No,
what?
I mean, I grew up in California. You know, I actually lived in LA for 10 years before moving to New York. And, you know, coming back was really more to be with me and my wife. Our family lives out in California. Our
Yeah.
parents getting older. We wanted some more time with them.
Do you think it'll
Surprisingly,
do
it's
you think
been
it'll
really good.
color
My
like
managers.
your oh,
Hmm?
I'm sorry. Do you think it'll color your kind of not perspective, but just your ideas or what have you as a
Oh,
filmmaker? I mean, how
absolutely.
do
I
you think
mean,
it'll impact you as a filmmaker, or is it just as a creative?
yeah, I think, you know, you're constantly, I think as creators, we're constantly looking for inspiration, right? And you know, I'm in New York, we moved a lot just because of the nature of New York. And yeah, every time we move, it was great. And so moving out here, I was like, oh, I can't wait for what's going to happen next. And it's been really helpful. I mean, there's been a lot more industry here than I've experienced in a long time living in New York.
Hmm.
My managers here, my agents are here, more production companies are here. Even though everything's on Zoom, the fact that I'm in LA, they make it feel like there's definitely more opportunity or taking more meetings.
Interesting. Well, I mean, I definitely, wish you all the best after, especially after hearing all of like the behind the scenes on this film, because like I said, you look at it and it doesn't look like, indie scrappy, whatever at all. I mean, it was really well done. So congrats to you. Anything else you'd like to add, Evan?
I mean, I just want to add, like, you know, as a first time, you know, we get back to as a filmmaker, right? I think first time director of narrative film, like I never did this before. I've shot a couple short films that are narrative, but, you know, making a narrative film is so hard. And I was lucky to have obviously the crew, but the cast is just incredible because without them, there's no way this movie turns out the way it is, right? They knew, you know, my weaknesses. They, you know, they were patient with my my lack of knowledge of what to do and how to do things as a director. And, you know, the performances is just beautiful and amazing. And I would be remiss to not, you know, talk about how good they were, right? Because, you know, them working with the first time filmmaker, it was, you know, you take a chance, right? I mean, you take a chance, especially in 20-degree weather. It's like, do I want to show up on this set and give them my art when do they know what the fuck they're doing? And, and ultimately I'm happy that I executed well for them, but I know I couldn't have done it without them.
That's great. Definitely always good to shout out the whole team, especially like you said, when they're working in 20 degrees. So Evan, what's up with distribution possibilities on Snakehead? Where are you guys with that right now?
Well, it's actually a really good story. I mean, obviously timing has been helpful, and talking about December, we're talking about like December 2020, like nobody is interested in our movie. And, I'm dead in the water, my producer, everyone's like, let's just get this out. We get into Santa Barbara International Film Festival. We get picked up for distribution by Samuel Goldwyn. We get into TIFF, and now we have a theatrical release and, VOD, 10/29. And, so this is really the dream of the indie film to be where we're at. And I am just completely blown away by it every day, by where we are with this film. And it's
Evan, so it all like paid off. I'm just so happy for you. Like yeah, come on, dude. The journey and the goal is like right there. That's really insane. And you secured that distribution based on whoever saw it, the Santa Barbara.
Yeah, I mean, we went through the classic route. We had a sales agent, and with the festival, get some momentum, and the momentum allowed us to sell the film, and it was.
That's great. So very soon, then it's going to be out and about. I am into this. Like I said, anything gangster, underground, whatever. Like I'm sure I was a gangster in like a couple lifetimes back. That's why I love this kind of stuff. So I love being able to see it with a different voice. Right? We already know the standard, Goodfellas-ish type of route, which I love that too. But seeing like some new faces with this. It's really hot. So last question. Do you know how to say snakehead in, would it be Mandarin?
Do I have one in Mandarin?
No, I said, do you know how to say it in Mandarin? Like, as you said, what they're called in China are snakeheads, but they're not snakehead,
it's
right?
Called tou.
I was just wondering.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Evan, it was very cool to talk with you. I wish you nothing but success because you just seem all filmmakers are passionate, but I love how you just have that grit about, your whole scenario. And I hope it just continues to pay off.
Well, thank you, Lauren. I appreciate your time.
My pleasure. You guys, I hope that you have enjoyed this episode. Snakehead is just a really, really hot film, and I'm glad that we could talk to Evan today and bring it to you right here at film.io. This is another episode of the Inside series. Thank you for watching, and I am Lauren Delisa Coleman.